tonight and just learning a little bit more about what we've been doing here, but hopefully you guys have all received all the communications over the past couple of weeks. Anybody not get any of the communications that we've been sending out? Text message, email, Facebook, Instagram. Anybody not receive something? All right, well that's a bonus. I would hope. I'm glad about that. So we just want to make sure everybody had a chance to get as much information as quick and at the same time. Tonight's about personal testimony. This isn't question and answer. This is personal testimonies about people and how they came to the conclusion that ultimately get presented over the next 2 weeks. But before we really get going, I want to thank our team. Collectively, we've been meeting for about 18 months. And so for you guys, this is the home stretch, right? And I want to say thank you collectively. And I'd hope that the church at least appreciate the work that they've done as well. So without anything else, we've got 4 people who will give testimonies tonight. Then I'll come up and give a group testimony of ultimately how collectively as a team we kind of rounded everything out. So who's first? Miss Grace, I think, is up. So.
Well, hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day and are prepared for the snowstorm coming this way. If you don't know me, my name is Grace Petering, and I'm married to Tyler Petering, and we've been married for over 15 years, and we have 3 young children, Gilbert, Reggie, and Lottie. Baby number 4 will be joining us in May, so we're very excited about that. Thank you. I'm going to begin my testimony by taking us all way back to when my name was Grace Vaughn. I was born in 1987, and some of my earliest memories in life are found in the very walls of this church building. I can remember specific Sunday school teachers throughout my childhood that include Brother Don DeClue, Sherry Flater, Miss Betty LeGrand, Miss Imogene back in the nursery, Miss Wanda Rayfield in my 5th grade Sunday school class. Jim Kirby was one of my 3rd grade Sunday school teachers. Donna Clark, Michael Charlie, my mom, my dad, Miss Mary Gans, just to name a few. There's so many others. I remember hiding underneath one of the round tables in 1st grade because Justin Flynn stuck his tongue out at me, and I was so embarrassed. So when it came down to fight or flight, I was definitely a flight. Jill Davis and I always getting into trouble for talking too much in Sunday school and taking too long to get drinks at the drinking fountain. And my teacher always had to come find us. Brother Dan Ellington was always pulling on my pigtails in 2nd grade Sunday school class, which is currently Brother Ron Roos's class. I first met Lee Aker in my 4th grade Sunday school class upstairs. I was in the 3rd grade Sunday school class when I first realized I was taller than all the other girls. Because our teachers needed me to hang up something higher on the bulletin board, and my classmates couldn't reach nearly as high as I could. I'm old enough to remember sandbagging in the flood of 1993. I probably wasn't very much help, but I was there and I do remember. And when the church offices were totally remodeled along with the education wing. You guys remember the church offices were over here? Yeah. The church nursery area, so much change and so many wonderful memories. With encouragement from Brother John Lee and Brother Howard Johnson, I first joined the adult choir when I was a mere 13 years old. I sang my very first solo in worship service the next year when I was 14, and the name of the song was Adore by Jackie Velasquez. I remember that evening service like it was yesterday. From Brother Bob Dove running the bus ministry, and skating days at Spinning Wheels when we have to pay a quarter and we got to go with the children's department. It was always so much fun. I played church softball as a child. Terry Doria was our coach. And then again as a youth and young adult, I participated in Easter cantatas, Christmas plays, Vacation Bible School, and countless other important ministries over the years. I first joined the praise team when Brother Mark Mathis was our music minister, and what a blessing that was. I walked this aisle when I accepted Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior, and I went forward to proclaim my salvation. I was baptized when I was 13 years old, and as an older youth, and because of this church and the Lord's blessings, I was able to serve on mission trips and youth leadership camps all over the world. I first laid my eyes on my husband Tyler in this very church. He was sitting about 8 rows back, right over there. Tammy, right about right there, that's right. He had attended church with some of our best friends at the time, James and Angela Kreitler. I kept my eye on him as he stood near the lobby after service, and I so badly wanted to talk to him. Shortly after Tyler was saved, he came forward, he walked this aisle, and he was baptized. A couple years later, I walked this aisle again, but this time I was being led by my dad as he gave me away to my husband in marriage. All three of our children have been born into this church family, and all three of our children have been dedicated to the Lord inside the walls of this church. As you can see, I've spent my entire life here. I'm 38 years old, and I have hardly known anything different. I've been at this church the good, the bad, the ugly, the hurt, the healing, the growth, and so much change. Some of the members I mentioned above don't attend our church any longer. Some still do, and some are attending church in heaven now. But one thing I'm thankful for is how each and every one of them played a pivotal role in my walk with Jesus. I was asked, how do you know without a doubt that we're supposed to move to the new church property? I've racked my brain and my heart again and again and again, trying to put the why and the how into words for me to explain to my wonderful, wonderful church family, who I love so much. Here's what I do know, and here's what I do believe. While this is God's church, it is his church in a world full of sinners. It will never be the perfect church while here on earth. That's what heaven's going to be for. But over the years, I have seen our church ebb and flow with members, passion, love, commitment, and desire to love and serve Jesus in the world around us. I believe we can and we should do anything, all of those things, no matter where we're located. However, in my heart and mind, so many things make sense for us to move to the Platten location. The sheer amount of ministry opportunities and growth in which that particular location offers, for me, is a no-brainer. And again, this is my testimony and what I've prayed about writing down, and for me, it's a no-brainer. While I'm all about never putting God in a box, I also believe as a courtesy to his children, he sometimes provides me with a very clear and basic signs so that my very small human brain can understand what his will is. Throughout this process, the Lord brought these passages to my heart. This is a short portion that Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23. Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became one under the law, though myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. I truly believe that we are called as a church to strengthen the current body of believers, and then next to reach the lost. How do we do this? Well, one of the things we can do is become all things to all people. Like Paul was talking about, whatever that takes. If that means being in one location to better utilize our time, gifts, talents, resources, tithes, and offerings, then so be it. If that means having a more contemporary looking building at our new location, then so be it. If that means having the lights turned down during some portions of the worship service, then so be it. If that means us, more mature and seasoned Christians, sacrificing some of our personal comforts and traditions in order to pour into the next generation, who are going to be soon the leaders of the church, then so be it. Be all things to all people for the glory of God and the advancement of the gospel. The church is not this building, and it's not the new building. It's you and it's me, our children and our grandchildren. It is our brothers and our sisters in Christ. Be all things to all people. How are we looking at the people in our area and the next generation over the next 100 years? We have the space out there to expand, so much more parking, property, church camps, outdoor chapel, playground, soccer fields, a gym that is utilized daily, every single day of the week. What a ministry. Holiday events, maybe a Christian school in the future. Expanding our homeless ministry, brand new at our fingertips. Also mentioning that Festus is most definitely moving south. And that's not my opinion, that's just demographics. The population headed south is undeniable. We think we have the prime location here on this corner, and we have. We absolutely have. But things change over time, just like all the changes I listed earlier in my testimony. Give it 10 more years and see what God is going to do with the Platten location. See all the growth and changes that take place over the next 5 to 20 years in South Festus. After much prayer and consideration, I honestly cannot think, when I weigh the options of both, why I would choose to stay, given what the new location could offer our church, our children, and our community. And as you know the history of my testimony, I have a lot of memories and reasons to want to stay here. But again, the church is not the building, the church is us, and this is not our home. Heaven is our home. We have a very short time on this earth, a very short time to be all things to all people. Let's go.
How in the world would you follow that? Well, my name is Don McGraw. I've been a member of this church for over 30 years. My wife, Vicki, has been here since she was 9 months old, and she was 74 today. So, happy birthday, honey. Vicki and I were married in this church. All three of our children were baptized in this church. I came to a saving grace in Jesus Christ myself in this church over 30 years ago. So this church has a lot of memories, not only for me, but for my whole family. Vicki's mom and dad were members here for 50 or 60 years. So there's a lot of memories in this church for my family as a whole. But I look back, probably because I'm old enough to remember, but you know, this whole process started over 25 years ago when Brother Richard was here and Neil Franks. We formed a 2020 mission, and that was to be relocated by the year 2020. We're 5 years past that. We formed a building committee, and there was a bunch of us that were, I don't know if there's anyone still on the building committee back then, but Larry Goodwin was one of them. And our whole vision was for us to plan an organized way to move to a different location. Personally, I believe that our vision doesn't come from the individuals here. It comes from usually your pastor and your spiritual leaders of the church. Back then, it was brought by Brother Richard and Neil Franks. It was passed on to Odell Beecham. It went on to Brother Charles. And now we have a vision that's continuing through Carrie and Brother Mitch. They are the spiritual leaders. They provide the vision that God gives to them for what the future of this church is. In my personal opinion, I think that through the years we have got property, we've got a building, and God made that all possible for us. And it's just His vision for us. It's not ours. A vision is a clear mental image of what God has for our future. And in my personal opinion, that future is at Platten Road. And I just pray that as a church, we see that God's working throughout this community. It's growing like crazy, and this whole community is growing. Like Grace said, the whole movement is to the south. We've got new businesses coming in, and my son-in-law is the chief of police in Crystal City, and one of the statistics he gave me was that from 2005 to the present day, there's been over 10 million more vehicles passing through this area. So there's a tremendous growth going in our community, and it's our mission to reach out and bring more and more people to Christ. And we can do that by staying here, or we can go out and meet the needs that are going to be coming up in the future. So that's my vision. I think that we need to be proactive in moving and going to the next phase and building the church out on Platten Road. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Pull up my notes here. All right. My name is Levi Vaughn. Most of you already know that. I've been a member here since I was 9 months before I was born, actually. Possessed Land Committee is the first committee I've ever been a part of in the church. It's something that I'm extremely thankful for to you guys because it's something that I have such a deep meaning, such a deep meaning in my life. This church body has played a huge role in my life from the time I was a kid until now, especially the members, the nursery workers, Sunday school teachers, the youth leaders, and the pastors. They're the true reason I call this church home. In the time I've been a member here, I've seen our church thrive and I've seen our church struggle, but we have always stayed a loving family through it all. And I ask that no matter the feelings or emotions that anyone has through this decision, that we don't forget who we are as a church and as God's children. As being on the Possessed Land Committee, our goal and job was to assess and to look at the feasibility of maintaining 2 separate campuses or just one. And over the past year, I have come to the decision through lots of prayer, conversations, and meetings that the Lord is calling us to move to the new campus out on Platten Road. And now I'd like to tell you guys why I feel this way and why I feel the Lord is calling us to move out there. Through my life here at First Baptist Church, Festus, Crystal City, I've seen ministries start up and ministries end. We had to end some ministries to start others. For instance, we had to end RAs and GAs, that was a kids program we had a while back, in order to start the Awana program. This was really hard for me at that time because I loved RAs. It was all I ever knew, it was something I loved attending, and I didn't want it to end. But when Awana started, I realized that it was just as good, if not better, than RAs. And now look at where our Awana program is today. I know this is an extremely small example, but it goes to show that some things have to come to an end for God to do something bigger than we can imagine. Another reason, and probably the most important reason, is our children. I want to give my children a church that they can be excited to go to and be a part of. And I'm not saying that where our church building is located will decide that, but in all reality, it will make a difference. For instance, I'm going to think like a kid for a second. I personally would be a whole lot more excited to go somewhere where I can run circles around a soccer field or play in a wonderful gymnasium. Now, I know these are all worldly things, but these are things that matter to kids, and we won't be able to give these things to our children at the location we're at now. These are all things that we already have at the FLC, and the opportunities are endless out there on what else we can give them. As parents, we want to set our kids up for success, and I would love to leave my children and my children's children I don't know why I'm getting emotional. In a building that they can thrive in. I personally believe that I've left my kids. Oh goodness, why? I personally believe that if I left my kids with the building we are in now, I'm leaving them with a lot of problems. Regardless if we fix everything that needs to be fixed, right now, the building is over 100 years old, so stuff is going to continue to get worse. Buildings have an expiration date on them, just like everything else in life. Through the Possessed Land Committee, countless meetings, I've come to the conclusion that logically, financially, and growth-wise, we should move. However, I also feel convicted to turn to the Bible and not just thinking about all of the logistics. Let me read, however I feel convicted to turn to the Bible. So I'm going to read Matthew 4:18 through 22. As he was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers. This is Jesus talking. Simon, who was called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the sea, since they were fishermen. "Follow me," Jesus said. He told them, "and I will make you I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. When God called his disciples, he didn't tell them to go back and think about it or to go talk to their friends about what they thought about it. He said to follow me, and they did. Those men got to walk hand in hand with Christ because of their obedience. They put all of their worries to the side and trusted in him to provide. And because of that, God used them in ways we can't imagine. I know that change is never fun or easy, but God never said it would be. God has been calling us to move for a very long time, and I'm done worrying about how we're going to do it, and I'm ready to just trust in him. Something else I want you guys to think about is just look around the room. Look at all of the kids. Look at the youth. What do you guys want to leave them with? The youth in the room, what do you guys want to be left with? They're the future, guys. I'm not guaranteed to be the future. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. But I know I want to leave my kids with a legacy. And the Lord's telling me the legacy isn't here anymore, guys. It's at Platinum Road. Love you guys.
Good evening. I'm Lee Aker. Legacy. We'll come back to that word in a minute. In Genesis 12, we see what true faith looks like when the Lord called Abram to move from his father's house and all he knew. This place was where he was comfortable. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." And here's the important part in verse 4. So Abram went as the Lord had told him. If we skip down to verse 7, we see that God wasn't even giving this land to Abram. He was giving it to his offspring that wouldn't even take the land for hundreds of years. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. For me, this decision was easy. I was in the room nearly 25 years ago when we as a church decided to follow the vision that God had given us to move. I remember the excitement that everyone had. I remember the talks of property as we searched for the place God had for us. I remember all these good times. But then came the attacks of the enemy. We've had a lot of change, conflict, people leaving and coming, a lot of distractions from the enemy. But God doesn't remove your calling just because things change or you get distracted or his calling seems too big. The enemy wouldn't be attacking us so hard if we weren't meant for something far greater. Right now, we as a church are sitting in Numbers 13, when Moses sent the 12 spies into the promised land, and only 2 came back understanding that God was bigger than the challenge ahead and that he had already promised this victory to them. The Israelites ended up rebelling, and you know the rest of the story from there. Through the years, I knew we were supposed to move, but I didn't fully understand the depth. Until a few years ago, when we had our own Abram moment. God told Rebecca and I in 2022 that we were supposed to leave our home of 9 years. We brought our babies home too. And then made our own with no next steps given. Just move. And so we did. and it has been an incredibly challenging time, but the greatness of being in his will and watching him put every step in front of us has been humbling. The things he's done in our lives the last 3 years were too big for me to even imagine, and I could only have ever dreamed of where he has brought us to. The health battles, the being without a place of our own, all of the work and stress, it's all worth it to be in his will. For part of this time, we thought he was moving us to help us grow our farm, but that wasn't the case. He was moving us, to grow us closer as a family, to show our children that it's worth the hard stuff, the ugly stuff, the pain, to be in the will of the Lord. He gave us our blessing to bless others. Our blessing isn't about us. It's about those that we are able to minister to with it. And it's about the legacy that we will pass on to our generations. Legacy has become a key word in our family since we began going to Encounter almost 2 years ago. Our desire is for our legacy to be one of faith and sacrifice. We want our generations to remember us for our yes. We want them to know that when God said go, we went. And he was faithful and he provided through it. As many of you know, I've been very outspoken on the fact that we should move. Probably too outspoken at times, and only in truth and not in love, and for that I am sorry. Going through this process with the Possess the Land team has shown me that this isn't only about the truth and the vision that God gave us 25 years ago. It's about more than just being obedient. It's about our legacy. It's about the generations that will come to know Christ because we said yes and we went. This may shock you, but when we first decided to build the FLC, I was an opponent of it at first. I didn't think it was the right time. I didn't think we were in a place to do it. But Brother Charles understood the vision that God gave us as a church and knew that we had to do something. So he led us into the first of what will be many phases. And like Abram, he knew that it wasn't for him, but for the generations to come, and I'm thankful for the push that he gave us. Rebecca and I were able to visit FBC Branson in November of 23 when they dedicated their new Welcome Center and their sanctuary expansion. The pastor spoke of how the church started, and those who were there in the beginning gave and worked selflessly with the generations to come on their mind, not theirs. And then he spoke of how, with this latest expansion, the people now did this with the next generations to come in their mind. As with Abram, it wasn't about them, and this isn't about us. It is about the future generations. Everything that we do needs to be to glorify Christ and to reach others for him with the next generation on our mind. My son sat in our meeting last week with us, playing on my phone while we talked. He came up to me halfway through and said, "Dad, if we build, can more people come?" I said, "Yes, buddy." And he smiled and said, "Okay," and sat back down. He gets that this is about reaching more people. In Matthew 28, Jesus said, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." In Acts 2, we saw the early church begin on the day of Pentecost with over 3,000 people. Can you imagine what would happen if we were that excited? 40 acres wouldn't be enough to hold us, but it's a good start. It's a step of faith and obedience that we began 25 years ago, and it's time that we give the enemy a black eye and step out of the desert in unity and possess this land that he promised to us. So what will be your legacy? Will it be a legacy of yes? Thank you.
Forgive me, I'm terrible with names, I'm terrible with dates. My wife would know that for sure. But collectively, we were put together as a committee about 18 months ago. This group was ultimately voted in by you, the church. Our original mandate was it even possible to move the church from here to Platten Road? That was our original mandate. This group of servants has been meeting, like I said before, just about every 2 weeks since that time period, with the few exceptions around Christmas time. Due to attrition of the group, at one point we were almost all males. So we actually had to get some additional females into the group. So ultimately the church had to vote again to place a few new members into service. That happened approximately 9 months ago. I asked Mike, I think it was about 9 months ago. To those new members, it was a breath of fresh air, and I thank you. Over that time, we had to start over all the conversations we originally tried to iron out, right? It was just collective thoughts, just thought after thought after thought, time after time. I can tell you we talked about a lot over that period of time. Just a few of the things that we talked about were this. How are we able to come from purchasing a piece of ground and a vision that was supposed to take place in 2020 to where we're at today? That was 25 years. We talked about Twin City Days. Robin, we talked a lot about the homeless ministry. We talked about music. We talked about class space. We did talk about the library some. We talked about handicap parking. We talked about stained glass windows. If you name it, at some point I feel like collectively we talked about it. The list was long, but it always came back to one thing. Where is the Lord in all this? Where is the Lord? We even talked about the cost, the financial impact. And what we ultimately realized is, yes, we might have been a group of people who came together, voted in by the church to do a job. But what we realized is we were still a small portion of this church body. So we went out to the church. If you guys can remember, we solicited questions from you guys. We went to the majority of the heads of the ministries that we could find. I apologize to a few people. I realized this week that we didn't catch everybody, and I'm sorry to those people that we didn't get to see or talk to. But we asked them what was important to them. Conversations continued again, and I feel like at one point we just spun around and around, just like a record, just like the song says, right? I'm not sure who it was, but ultimately we decided that even though we had people who were highly skilled in their craft, from architects, builders, engineers, lifelong church members, we still felt like something was missing in our group. At that point, we decided we needed the assistance of an outside architect that at that point would have no bias on the ultimate outcome. So we came back to the church ultimately and asked for $25,000 to help us through the process. If you guys can remember that on this journey. After much prayer and yet another business meeting, yet another vote, the committee ultimately selected Design Alliance. They were one of about 5 people or so that we identified as a potential firm to help navigate us. They had a list of credentials from here, well, at least down to Cape Girardeau, as they're building a massive building down in Linwood Baptist right now, right? During that process, they came down. We had a great meeting with us and interviewed us, interviewed them. It was fantastic, ultimately hired them. During that process, their leader ultimately passed away. Another roadblock, another setback for us as a committee. But we loved their presentation, and we ultimately felt like even with that, it was still the right decision to plow forward. After that, we went out and solicited another potential person to put on the team to give us wisdom on potentially how much could be raised during a professional campaign. That would be a capital campaign. Just so everyone is clear, over a year ago, the church voted from the recommendation of the finance team to have a capital campaign prior to Possess the Land Committee. They eventually realized that we were going to have to raise capital or money. The finance team saw it well in advance. There was a joint meeting even with the finance team and with Possess the Land team to discuss the costs. Eventually, even though it was voted in to have a campaign, neither committee felt like it was right to have a campaign without knowing exactly what the church was going to be voted on to move forward with, what the funds would be used for. So it was tabled till a few business meetings ago, right? Another business meeting, which at that meeting, our mandate ultimately changed. The church wanted us to ultimately stay or go, right? What is it going to be? You guys remember that was a conversation. To make it a little more specific, to build or to remodel based on a church vote. The finance team and the Possess the Land team, as well as the staff, agreed on a name by the name of John Hessel to launch this campaign. We agreed to a price with them, so no matter what the decision, the campaign starts right after the vote, which is an answer to many of your questions. It was one of the top 30 or 33 questions. So you know, March 2nd, this team, which is another answer to your question, disbands. We're finished. Our mandate's over by the church. We feel like our mission is complete at that point. So let me go back a little and say that list of 33 questions, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, your questions will all be answered. Most of them will be next week, but some of them are just going to be up to the church and what we collectively want to do. Like, one of the questions we have is, will we have a choir? Hopefully, we have been answered the nursery question. That was a big one that a lot of people asked. Will we have a nursery? What will it look like? Will we have trailers? What will we do, right? There was lots of questions around the spacing and stuff like that. Hopefully the blueprints out there at least show you what the new property would look like. It's got handicap parking. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, I believe that there will not be pews out there. That was also in the top 33. It will probably be chairs. Another question is will we build a church like sanctuary, or will we worship in a multi-purpose building? I believe the answer is we're going to be worshiping in a multi-purpose building out there. I guess I really want to say this. This past week, I've got a lot of phone calls from different people. Some for, some against, right? Let me make this really, 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 really clear to you guys. This is my opinion, my testimony here. Don't make it about a building. You make it about the building, we're going to miss the mark every single time. This is really about the vision for the church. We want you to make it about the Lord. We want to think about the next 50 years, the next 100 years from today. And I know that's difficult because as I look around, the majority of us are probably not going to be here. We're probably not going to see the total project come to fruition. I wish I could. I hope I do. But I probably won't. And truth be told, it's going to cost us all something too. It's going to cost us time, maybe stress, financial burdens, right? Financially, it's going to cost. But I think the message this morning was timeless. It was perfect. It ultimately really boils down to eternity. And where we worship is not really the priority. It should be, where is the Lord leading, and where can we have the greatest impact for the next generation? Looking back in church history, there were a lot of people who I'm sure did not want to move the church to this corner. I've wondered, maybe somebody out there could tell me the answer. I've tried to be the church historian through this, but I want to know why it was Festus Crystal City today, right? Because originally it was in Festus. Weird conversation for myself. This church property was swampy, right, when it was built on it. It wasn't the ideal piece of property, you know, that people think, you know what I mean? It just was a swampy mess. So I guess we ask you this evening, and really this month, is to clear your minds, remove any personal bias that you might have to a property or to what you feel is the right answer, and really start to ask the Lord, Lord, what are you up to? Lord, where are you going? And no matter what happens ultimately, we're a church family, through and through. There are going to be pros, there are going to be cons on both paths. But the bottom line is really, where is God moving? Where is the Lord moving? So, we appreciate you, and I want to say thank you to the church as well. I know we haven't been maybe as quick with answers as some of y'all would like, right? And I say that because sometimes we just didn't have the answer, right? It's a daunting process to try and make 500 people, quote unquote, happy. And what we had to realize is that it's not about us, it's about the Lord. So. I guess next week we'll have at 3 o'clock here, and then 4 o'clock we go to the next campus, and then after that we're going to have a question and answer time with the architect. You'll get a ton more information about all that. But I think we got a really special service, Jared. Are these your kin right here? Well, that's pretty excited. Stand up here, man. Let's appreciate it, man. So, anyway, thank y'all. So.
Give the Possessed Land Committee a hand. Appreciate y'all and your hard work, and I got to sit in on a lot of those meetings starting last April, and I told some friends God called me to Festus Crystal City to help the church through a difficult time and bring them together, help them to love each other and move towards the future. I had no idea. I mean, Chris probably told me the first time, but I don't remember anything about, oh, you're going to be involved in a building committee and a building campaign and moving the church to maybe a new location. And I just came to preach. I mean, I'm sorry, but anyway, I'm glad I am here, and it's been an eye-opening experience. And I appreciate the job they've done. I hope that you will pray hard between now and 2 weeks from tonight. You'll get a lot of answers next week. You're going to be surprised by some of them. You're going to be surprised what it's going to cost to stay here, too. But we'll get those answers next week from the architects. And I'm going to give you a break. We're dismissed until 5 o'clock. Thank you.